Jonas is the vocalist of Swedish metal band Katatonia. Their 10th studio album, The Fall of Hearts, will be released on May 20th. Jonas, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So the new album, tell us a little bit about it.
I would say if we compare it to like the previous album, this one is it's a very long album. First of all, it's I think around 70 minutes, and it's a little bit more progressive probably than anything that we've done before. It's very dynamic and diverse, and I think it's got bits and pieces of, I mean, pretty much anything that we've done with Katatonia the last 20 years, you know, all sort of compressed into a very adventurous musical journey.
Now, you mentioned on the website that this album is probably everything we've unknowingly ever dreamed to release. Do you sort of get the feeling that you're aiming towards this subconsciously? Is that what you're trying to get at?
Absolutely. I think every time we, start the writing process of a new album, at least I don't have like a master plan or anything. I rather just sit there and work on music and see where it will take me. I'm pretty much as excited as anyone else, that are into Katatonia when I start doing the music, because I know there will be a lot of stuff that I would not expect from myself to come out if I'm in that creative mood, So it's definitely a subconscious thing. As I really don't have like thoughts like I'm gonna write this kind of song today, or I'm gonna work on something that sounds like this. It's all very creative and natural in the flow of it, and I really like that because it makes it exciting.
Where do you get your inspiration from? Is it sort of internal, sort of thoughts, or is it sort of external things, or what is it that inspires you both musically and lyrically?
I think a lot of it is internal stuff, especially from when I'm doing lyrics. Music is also an internal thing, but of course you can't really avoid getting inspired by other things, especially if you're like me, a music fan. I listen to music a lot of the time, and I mean, it's, as I said, it's impossible to avoid getting inspired or having ideas from something. It probably will end up sounding completely different from the thing that you were listening to and taking inspiration from, but I mean, it's usually like a trigger thing somewhere. Also, I think, movies, literature, anything that sort of speaks to me on a level where I get emotionally connected to it, it will have an inspiration on the musical work that I do.
Do you ever base the lyrics you make around stories that like the movies or literature that you read or watch?
Not really. I mean, I can get really inspired by, say, if I'm reading a book and there is a certain line in that book that I really like, that I sort of connect to. That line can probably be like a trigger for me to write something in the same context, and then I build something out of myself on the rest of it. So, but I really don't write lyrics as having like a storyline. I think that's first of all, it's kind of complicated to make it work in such a small. I mean, lyrics are very short, sort of pieces usually. So if you need to have like a start and then a middle piece where a lot of things happen, and then an end piece, it's hard to make it work. So to me, the lyrics are more abstract stories. Usually, when I look back on them, I can see where I was sort of emotionally at the time when I wrote them. But when I write them, it's really hard for me to pinpoint what they're all about, So it's very abstract.
Now, your last few releases, Dead End Kings, Dethroned and Uncrowned, and now the Fall of Hearts, as well as your second record, Brave Murder Day, and your logo, all feature images of Bird. Is there any particular significance to that kind of image?
I think it's something that has grown to become like a symbol for the band because even as you said on our second album, we used this dead bird on the cover, and it has sort of followed us through the career. I mean, it's also in the album Tonight's Decision, not on the cover really, but um, I don't know. It's just a symbol that fits Katatonia very well. I think it's often seen as a symbol of death, which is also a subject that we have in our music, we sing about and write about. But to me, also a symbol of freedom, uh, which also is something that we dwell on in the band. You know, like having what do you say, like creative freedom, being a band that can uh, try out all kinds of different things and sort of enhance our music. We're not really um, bound to a specific genre, even if we have our roots in metal music. So it's just and it's also nice looking, you know.
Yeah. Now, you and Anders self-produced this album, and one thing I often hear when people talk about the producer of their album is the different perspective they offer. You know, another voice which is kind of outside the dialogue between the band members. Is that something you kind of notice, the absence of an additional producer, when you're actually making the album?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time it will work out because we're sort of being the different voice to each other's ideas and songs. But of course, you know, once in a while you will think that it would have been good to have even another voice coming in saying like this part is shit, you know, you should take it away or you should extend this part because it's so good. But we have chosen to do it this way because I think both me and Anders are very picky, and we wouldn't want to have someone uh, digging around in our material too much because it's so personal. I mean, if I did it with another kind of band, I would probably opt for having a producer. But with Katatonia, it's such a delicate thing. It's feels like it's very private. So, um, but you know, I don't definitely don't rule out that we might have one in the future. You know, it depends all on what kind of album we're gonna do, or it's just been this way now because we're pretty comfortable doing it this way.
You guys have had a bit of a lineup shift in the past 2 years. Yeah, new drummer Daniel last year, new guitarist Roger this year. Has that in any way influenced the music that's been produced for this album?
Yeah, I think especially the addition of Daniel, the drummer. I mean, we played with him almost 2 years now in live situations, as this is the first album recording. But um, knowing that he's a very capable drummer inspired both me and Anders to take away even more of the boundaries that we have when we write music, and also discussing a lot of stuff with him, saying like, "What do you think about this? Could you play this kind of beat to this kind of riff?" And he was saying like, "Anything you throw me, I will play just the way you want it." And having that kind of a drummer is a liberty when it comes to songwriting. I think someone who is up for the challenge. You know, he's got the skills to do it. So that has been, I would say, a foundation for the songwriting of this album. With Roger, the guitar player, he came into the band in January when the album was almost finished. So he didn't have an impact on the music of it. But we got him to play a few solos on there just to make him feel that he was also making a mark on the album. But now that we've had him in the band for some time, we're rehearsing with him. I think he's a great addition. He's a fantastic guitar player, Definitely looking forward to make music with him in the future as well.
Originally, vocally, you had more of a screaming style on Dance at December Souls, and Michael Ackerfeld performed similarly on Brave Murder Days, but after that you embraced an entire clean style for Discouraged One. In terms of that vocal talent, was that something you always had lurking there, but you just didn't express it significantly on the first album, or was it something that you developed after you had some trouble with your original vocal style?
Um, it's hard to say. I mean, because I was the original vocalist. Uh, the other guys at the time sort of wanted me to keep doing it, even if we changed to like clean vocals, and I was very uncomfortable doing it when we first started doing it, just before the recording of the Discouraged Ones album. But I thought to myself that I should give it a go because I was writing the lyrics, and I like the thought of expressing myself with a voice, but I wasn't a good singer. But today I'm very happy that I took the chance to do it, because today I feel very comfortable singing. I think it's a very creative way of uh, doing music, using your voice, which is a very personal instrument, if you call it an instrument. And it goes very much hand in hand with, performing the lyrics that I write. I feel comfortable today, yes.
Now, later this year, you'll be celebrating your 25th anniversary and playing The Great Cold Distance in its entirety. Do you have any thoughts about why this particular album has struck a chord with your fans?
I don't know. I think it's an album where everything fell into place. Songwriting wise, I think it's really good. Production wise, the mix of the album is fantastic. So um, I don't know, and it's also celebrating 10 years, which is it's kind of different. It's kind of unreal to think about, but time flies. So we thought it would be a very good um, opportunity to do it, as it's like a fan favorite record, and it's also having an anniversary. And it will be fun. I mean, there are a couple of songs on there that we have never played live before, so that's going to be also a challenge to, try it on.
Now, speaking of challenging, you're also planning on playing, I can't remember if it's earlier or later than that particular show, but you're also planning on playing the entire album accompanied by an orchestra. Is there anything special you need to do to prepare for that?
I don't know yet. We have just gotten in touch with this conductor guy that is the conductor for the orchestra down there in Bulgaria. Um, and from what I understand, he will start looking at the material and see what he wants the orchestra to do to sort of enhance everything and make it orchestral, I guess. And then we go to Bulgaria 2 days before the show to rehearse with the orchestra. Um, I really don't know what to expect. I mean, it's probably much more impressive being in the audience than being on stage, because we use the in-ears and stuff, and probably can't get all of the orchestra in our monitors. But I can't wait to hear when it's done, the end result of it. It has to be really a special thing.
Now, I was browsing, in preparation for this interview, I was browsing your Facebook page, and I was really impressed by the number of fan tattoos that people have inked on themselves. Do you think that sort of expresses the fact that this is kind of very personal music, not only to you as the writer and performer, but to people who experience it?
I think so, yeah. It struck me a number of times, because I see it also, that there's a lot of people choosing images from our records, lyrics, all of that stuff. And, a tattoo is something, of course, very private and very personal, and you know it's not gonna go away. You have to stand by it somehow through the years. And when people decide to do something like that with a relation to what we have done with our band, it's of course very flattering. I can just hope that they don't regret it in 10 years.
Now, can you? I always like to get this perspective from people. It's really fascinating. Can you talk a little bit about about your influence in general and how you got into heavy metal specifically?
Um, well, for me, heavy metal was kind of present before I even heard it because it was when I was a kid really, and I saw these older kids at school having the coolest T-shirts I've ever seen. Iron Maiden, Kiss, Motorhead, and I really didn't have an idea of what it was until I sort of asked someone, and they said this is like a band. And then I asked my dad if I could get heavy metal records for Christmas, and so he got me Iron Maiden album and the Motorhead album, and from then on I was just hooked. I think for a kid, it's partly because of the record covers. They look like anything you want to see when you're a kid, and also the music, of course, is very special, and it's something that I think it's something everlasting about heavy metal. It's you either hear it for the first time and you feel like this is what I'm gonna listen to for the rest of my life, or you think it's shit and never put it on again. And for me, it was really I felt that I had a very deep connection to it even when I was young, and it's just kept on. Today I'm listening to loads of different kinds of music, which you can also probably hear in Katatonia's music, but I'm always coming back to the metal stuff that I learned to love when I was young and still do.
Now, final question. You've often been compared, whether properly or improperly, to the so-called Peaceville Three. And what's really fascinating me about those four bands is that the vaguely comparable sounds in the beginning, but all of your bands, I'm having a total mind blank. But all you guys, you went in totally different directions after a few albums, and for me, that'll always be one of the most fascinating things, really, in music. And it's kind of just one of my things that I have. Do you have any thoughts about what happens with the writers of music, that they sort of start off in a particular style, but then they sort of develop? Do you have any thoughts about what happens, like what's happened in yourself musically to develop over the years?
I know what you mean, definitely, and it's a very interesting thing to think about. But I guess it all sort of boils down to who you are as persons, and um, for us, I guess we were very inspired by Paradise Lost in the beginning. So obviously we wanted to sound, uh, like them. And they, in their turn, they probably had their own influences, like Celtic Frost, maybe. So I think it's all about finding an expression that you feel has a connection to you. And then, of course, as you grow as persons, as musicians, performers, you will always look for a challenge, and then you go to something else to find inspiration, and you want to broaden your sound. So I guess this is what's happened to all these bands. Uh, Finding something that will make us go on and not sort of stagnate. I mean, I wouldn't be happy if we still sounded like a Paradise Lost copy today. We would probably not be around, but um, so it's very hard to say. But I find it fascinating, and I think it's good for all the bands that we have sort of different identities these days, because there's so much more music to indulge in when you have four bands that sounds different than if you have four bands that sounds the same, you know.
The 10th studio album of Katatonia, The Fall of Hearts, released on May 20th. Jonas, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.